Okay, everyone. I know folks are still getting signed in, but if you would please take your seat. We have a pretty full agenda and we want to go ahead and get started. Thank you. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Brandon Cook. I'm the Healthcare for the Homeless and Medical Respite Program Director for New Horizons Family Health Services, and I'm also the Secretary of the Greenville Homeless Alliance Steering Committee. I want to thank you all for joining us today, and I want to welcome you to your joint Upstate Continuum of Care and GHA stakeholder meeting. As we gather here today, it is important to remember our purpose. We are gathered here for each other. We are gathered here for our neighbors, some of whom are among the most vulnerable in our community. And we are gathered here to put our collective minds together to solve a problem that impacts our entire community. We are also here because we support the GHA mission, which is to strengthen and broaden supports in an effort to increase options for individuals or families who are experiencing homelessness in Greenville County. We are also here because we share in the GHA vision, in which we believe in Greenville County without homelessness, where there are safe, affordable homes for everyone. And we are also here because we align with GHA values. We are here because we all believe that equity, fair access benefiting everyone, integrity, doing what we say we're going to do, inclusiveness, honoring the value of every human being, pragmatism, striving for the best outcomes, and courage, which is aspiring to be a collective voice for people experiencing homelessness and for those working to eliminate homelessness, is how we will work toward the mission and make our vision a reality. This is hard work, and it will take us working together as a community to continue to push forward and ensure all of our neighbors have access to safe, stable, accessible, and affordable homes. I would like to thank our elected officials and members of boards or commissions that may be here, and for their support, and for also continuing to be a part of the collaborative effort. And last but certainly not least, we would like to thank our very own Lauren Stevens, Director of Social Services with the Salvation Army and Chair of the Greenville Homeless Alliance, and Salvation Army of Greenville and the CoC Center for allowing the use of this awesome meeting space today. So turn on your ears, put on your thinking caps, and stay tuned. With that, I'll turn you over to Susan McClarty, our director. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandon, and thank you all for being here. We have about 20 or so who are on Zoom as well, so thank you all. I'm going to talk briefly before we jump into what we're excited to share today, which is how our working groups have come together and are going to be attacking the system of homelessness here in Greenville County. So on your screen, you might be able to read, but if you can't, it's okay. I'm going to walk you through it. Systems change is the model and the practice that the Homeless Alliance adopted when we formed, and it's about advancing equity as we shift the conditions that hold the problem of homelessness in place here in Greenville County. And it's based on a national best practice that was developed after looking at successful coalitions across the country. And it was developed by Stanford University. And if you want to do more research on that, it's called the Collective Impact Model. So to fully embrace this change, we should all be prepared to see how our own ways of thinking and acting must also change as well. So what we're going to look at first is on that top part. We call this the inverted triangle, where you see policy. These, as it sounds, might be our rules, our regulations, our priorities that guide our institutional and individual actions. The practices beside that are the organizational and practitioner activities that reflect the values and priorities established at that level of our power structure. And then obviously the resource flow, the reason that many of us continue to show up and are here today is to look at how money, people, knowledge, and information are allocated and distributed across a system. Many of you, I think, have seen those stories in the Greenville News that ran in January that looked at what's been happening in our community around homelessness and housing insecurity. And when that reporter first came to Greenville from Charlotte, his question was, how much money is your city spending to address homelessness? And this was a couple years ago, and I said, 0. But that was from, like, specifically from our own dollars. But if you look at what we put into affordable housing, we are going to dive into that today. So in that next level, we're addressing relationships and connections, quality of connections, communication occurring between our systems players. So all of you are here today, and your being here is a part of putting that into motion. And another example is our Collaborate working group met just yesterday. You're going to hear an update from them. Those power dynamics involve all of us as individuals and organizations who hold decision-making power, authority, and influence. And then the bottom, you heard us talk a lot about that in 2022, because we know in order to really make change here in Greenville County, we have to continue to work on what each of us thinks and believes about homelessness and what we hold deeply due to how we were raised, where we were raised in the country, the experiences that we all have that are different. And so those have informed the assumptions that we make that also deeply influence each of our actions. And so tomorrow, our Educate working group is meeting, and we just wanted to highlight and thank all of our working group members because, as you can hear, they are hard at work. And so we wanted to, as the Homeless Alliance, work together to shift these conditions that are more likely to be sustained when all 3 of these levels are being attacked. And that can, as you see on the slide, result in transformative change and structural change. So we're going to look at both the implicit and the explicit ways that we're doing that today by sharing with you what our working group members have been doing with the leadership, especially since we last saw all of you at the end of 2022. We've taken a deep dive into our strategic plan with the leadership of each of those groups, asked some really hard questions. How could we use our time in 2023 to really move the needle in each of these areas? So that's what we're excited to share with you today. And in early February, those working group chairs and co-chairs, or vice chairs, and our steering committee got together at Trying Mercy Center for a retreat where we met and we determined exactly what are the goals that we're going to focus on for 2023 to bring to you today. So now I'm going to introduce Stacy. Right? No, who's up first?
Tina.
Tina Harris is going to come up and talk about our Advocate working group. Thank you all.
Good afternoon. So the Advocate Working Group is ultimately working to increase the number of residents who understand and are willing to engage with the process of advocacy to impact homelessness in the areas of policies, practices, and resources. As well, we want to wake up the advocate, the inner advocate, and those who take the Advocacy Academy. So we want to remind them that they have a voice. And so after this academy, hopefully they will use it. Okay, so our goals this year are to, number 1, work with GHA staff to update GHA policy agenda. This agenda is developed using our 4 primary advocacy goals of increasing exits from homelessness, reducing barriers to exiting homelessness, strengthening coordinated community response, and support public transit. We are already seeing movement at the state level on 2 of the policies we are monitoring. The first is an effort being led by the South Carolina Fair Lending Alliance to cap the interest rate at 36%. A rate cap bill will limit the interest rates on consumer loans, including payday loans, which are currently limitless on the rates that can be charged by lenders, and people in South Carolina are regularly paying 200% to 500% interest for these loans. The second is an effort to address rights to counsel for tenants in eviction proceedings. We will keep you posted as these efforts continue to develop. And number two, monitor national efforts to reduce homelessness by 25% by 2025. So developed by the U.S. Interagency Council on Homelessness, the USICH, in collaboration with 19 federal agencies, all in the Federal Strategic Plan to Prevent and End Homelessness. It outlines strategies to prevent homelessness and increase the supply of housing with supportive services, with the goal of reducing homelessness nationally by 25% by 2025. The Advocate Working Group will work to understand how this plan can be implemented locally by the Upstate Continuum of Care and other federally funded organizations, and what role GHA partners and stakeholders can play to collaborate and maximize the effectiveness of these efforts. And number three, continue offering the Advocacy Training Academy sessions. GHA's Advocacy Training Academy is a 2-hour session that covers the topics of homelessness in Greenville County, GHA's advocacy agenda, Advocacy 101, and how to put it all together to have impact. We have 2 sessions in the process of being scheduled and 2 more in early planning stages. We also plan to record key portions of the training to be accessed through GHA's YouTube channel. This virtual option will allow us to reach residents who might not have the opportunity to participate in one of our other Academy sessions. You can see pictures from our last session with the Sterling Neighborhood Association on the screen, and here's a brief video from some of our participants.
I thought it was very informative, and I see great things ahead. It's very educational and gave me some practical understanding of what I can do to be a part of the change.
I really enjoyed it. I felt like it was very informative, and I'm leaving energetic.
Thank you, and that's what waking up the advocacy within us all looks like.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Matt Johnson. I have a law firm just down the street, and I'm on the GHA steering committee. And I'm here to talk a little bit about the Collaborate Working Group. In less than 5 minutes, I want to do 3 things. One, let you know what the Collaborate Working Group does, what our purpose is. And I want to talk to you about 2 projects that we've undertaken and hope to complete in the next year or hopefully less. First, our primary purpose. Our intent is to convene cross-sector partners to share expertise, perspectives, and resources to support GHA's common agenda. Let me share 2 projects that we're working on that will help sort of illustrate what that purpose is. First is something that Ryan Dirk with Miracle Hill is referred to as the Holy Grail in our sector. And I like to think of the Collaborate Working Group as akin to King Arthur in the round table, questing for the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail is this: it is a comprehensive, complete homelessness resource guide. What we want to do is, the purpose of this is to simplify the process of moving from homelessness to stable housing, to help identify barriers to accessing services for people in need, their family members, people in the community who care. You know, right now, somebody like me who's never been homeless, never had a family member who's homeless, Hopefully won't wind up that way. Doesn't work in the homeless space. I recognize a need to help those people who don't have a home tonight. How do I do that? Most people have no clue where to start. What we want to do is provide a complete resource that will give people the start that they need to get involved, to advocate for people out on the streets, or to advocate at government levels or at the business level to help create that collaboration to get people off the streets. Last year we started mapping resources for different groups. You wouldn't believe how many groups are providing services to the homeless in Grayville. It was an exhaustive process. It's ongoing. It will continue. But there's so many groups doing it. There's so many different ways they're doing it, different groups that they cater to. We want to provide a comprehensive resource so that no matter who you are, no matter who you want to help, no matter what information you need, it will be there. We're going to have it on the GHA website, hopefully by the end of the year. We're also looking at, can we develop an app? Can we develop some more sophisticated web tool? We're not sure about that. Those things have costs. And sadly, we don't have unlimited resources, but we're going to do the best we can to get the best product into people's hands, whether it's a PDF guide that they can download from the GHA website, an app, or anything else. We don't know, but we're working on it, and we've got the information we need to get a great start on it. And the Nights of the Round Table will continue. The next, this is exciting. The second project that we're working on is a community engagement birthday project. You may or may not know, GHA's been around for about 5 years now. And what we want to do is to celebrate the 5 years of our existence, to celebrate our accomplishments, but more than that, bring new people in. Again, this is the Collaborate group. We're trying to bring more people to the table to have more collaboration. We are working on a project. I've been sworn to secrecy. I can't tell you what the project is, but be excited. You're going to know soon enough. And when you know, we're going to need you. We're going to need your help. We're going to need your contacts. We're going to need your physical bodies to come help out in a really exciting project. Even though it's top secret for now, it won't be forever. We've already begun brainstorming and planning a way to celebrate the accomplishment. It's going to be, I think it could be really great, but it's going to take you folks to come help us. And what we want to do is in the process, not just have a party where we celebrate ourselves. We want to be active. We want to be engaged in the community. And we want to bring more people to GHA. We want to bring more people to I guess, the quest, to again use the Holy Grail reference, to end homelessness. And we're going to have a really neat project unveiled in the very near future. And we look forward to letting everybody know and get involved. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Gatchell. I'm not Sharon Champion. Sadly, she is not feeling well today, so I am stepping in her place. I work with the Grayville Homeless Alliance, and thank you for being here today. We are so appreciative. I'm going to real quickly do one quick commercial. At the back of the room, there is a table that gives you more information about all the working groups that you're hearing about right now. It also gives you a place that you can sign up if you want to learn more about working groups or want to become part of a working group. There's also a way that you can sign up to start receiving our newsletters and find different ways to be engaged with GHA. So please stop by that table before you leave today. If anything catches your eye or makes you think, hey, I think I'd like to be a part of that. So I'm going to talk really briefly about our Educate working group. And as you heard Susan talk about earlier, we're focusing on the bottom part of that triangle, those mental models, changing the narrative, changing the way people think and feel about homelessness in our community. There are many, many misconceptions. There are many, many implicit biases. There are many, many people who aren't even aware of what homelessness really looks like locally. And so that is kind of our quest, is how do we go about changing that and ultimately then changing every other part of the system, relationships and power dynamics and policies and resource flows. So that's what we are called to do. In 2023, our goals will include to continue our community education. Last year, we started a series called Mythbusters. And again, it was to look at some of those misconceptions the community has and kind of blow it up. And in case you're not familiar, why don't we take a look at one of them?
When affordable housing comes in, home values go down, crime rates go up. No, wrong. That is a myth. I'm Greg Dover, the pastor of Augusta Heights Baptist Church. When our church sold some of its property over a decade ago to develop affordable housing, we heard these same concerns from many of our neighbors. But it turns out they just weren't true.
Neighbors had a lot of concerns, mine included. One was traffic, another was our property values, and the third was crime and safety. I think that unknown of what kind of project would this be and who would live there, people filled that blanket with fear and kind of assumed the worst about it. I think no matter what was proposed, we would have all been nervous about what the change would be. But that it was going to be affordable housing, I think made everyone a little bit more concerned. Now that the project is complete and 10 years old, I have to say it's been a great addition to the community. All of us understand this topic a little bit more and see how lack of affordable housing is really impacting our community. And this is a part of the solution to that.
Since the apartments were built next door to the church, there's actually been a reduction in crime in our neighborhood. And we've seen home values go up by as much as 160%. And that's not just here. These same trends hold true for Reedy Place, another affordable housing development, which now has luxury townhomes next door, and for numerous other developments and locations throughout Greenville. Why? Because these kinds of developments provide a home for jobs, bringing our workforce, not crime, to our communities. Servers, hotel housekeepers, retail workers. Affordable developments provide a place for the people who work these jobs to live, helping to attract and retain them, making our local economy even stronger. Affordable housing doesn't cause crime or hurt home values. It brings crime down and home values up. It helps our economy and the people who live and work here, and it makes our neighborhoods and our communities, it makes Greenville better.
Didn't they do a great job with that? Sexualized, written, and recorded by our Educate Working Group. So that's what we say when we say working groups or committees on steroids, that's what we're talking about. So we'll also be doing some more things with our social media squad, which we developed last year to help again reach a larger audience of Greenville with information about homelessness. And one of the things we're real excited about is putting together a plan to take these beautiful banners that you see here in the room and get them out into the community. Right now we have some already out in businesses, but we have these available for you to put in your place of business, for you to put in your school or your faith community or any other group that you have. And the banners have a QR code on them that will take you to a story that features the people on the banner. And it will give you some more information about someone who has faced housing insecurity or homelessness and the organization that walked alongside them and helped them find a path forward. So we're very excited about these and look for more information about how you can get one of these in your place of business. There's also a Mythbuster one too that takes you to our Mythbusters. Finally, we're going to do develop an unsheltered brief this year. As you know, there is more and more attention locally for folks that are living unsheltered, and we want to do a little deeper dive and help understand some of the reasons why this is happening, what are the causes, what are the solutions, what are the best practices around the community. And we hope that this brief then will provide information that will not only be educational, but can support potential solutions in our community. We'll hopefully have that done and released later this year. So in a nutshell, that's our Educate Working Group. And don't forget to go check out the table at the back before we go.
Hey everyone, good afternoon. So I'm Linda King. I work at Packlet Milliken, which is a local owner and operator of real estate and energy assets down here right in downtown. I also serve as the co-chair with Adric Caesar for the Innovate Working Group. Our working group, as it sounds, is tasked with innovating the space and also bridging the gap between our 3 other working groups. A big round of applause for all those members who've spoken before today. That's so awesome. Some of the goals that we want to talk about today, just give y'all some insight into, we have 3 we're going to talk about. The first is really developing a criteria by which GHA can evaluate new pilot initiatives that are seeking to address homelessness in our community. We have a really interesting approach here at GHA that we have public and private stakeholders. A private example is really, Miracle Home Ministries, and a public example is Greenville Housing Authority, for example. And we have, really interesting, diverse, really decades-long experience at the table here in our community. And one of our goals this year is to really understand, for GHA to support new initiatives, what kinds of aspects do those programs need to contain, and really getting in the weeds with our private and public partners to understand what kind of checkboxes we need to hit, what do we need to see from services in order for GHA to really give their stamp of approval. In terms of how we think this is going to be packaged, we plan to really create a survey and poll all of our partners, and also have one-on-one conversations in our community. And then hopefully, either in hopefully 10 months from now or less, really unveil that document to understand, what would that actually look like from a publishable, more memorialized perspective. Our second goal for the year is creating a data pilot. I moved here 2 years ago from New York, and I've seen, as we talked to our partners, how many different data systems are utilized to really track and understand those who are experiencing homelessness in our community. We actually had a working group meeting last week for Innovate, hosted by Homes of Hope, and we learned that only 9 of 20 service providers use a common system to actually aggregate data. So we're clearly missing a lot in terms of the gaps in who we're tracking and how we're understanding those who are experiencing this in our community. And so we're trying to really understand which providers use what, and how can we really think of a universal system that we can all get behind and kind of get around. Obviously, there's a lot in there, data sharing, understanding, priorities and kind of perspectives of these different service providers, but really trying to take a deep dive into that avenue this year so we can try to, create a common system to really minimize those gaps in coverage. Last but not least, is really convening landlord engagement. Last year, our group created a list of landlords who provide affordable housing, from workforce housing down to deeply affordable housing. And so our next step for this year is really trying to understand, for those owners and operators of those assets, how can we engage them more directly to understand how we can help place those who really are seeing the need right now in a homeless population that may have a voucher. How can we help place them in units? Kind of what support would be needed at the landlord level to really incentivize them to place more units. And so this is something that's actually pretty new for our group and one of the more direct engagement efforts. But we're really excited for this year. We have a lot of project-based deliverables and projects. So definitely, if you're interested, please sign up, as Heather said. If you want to see some more help, we're doing some really cool stuff this year. Thank you.
I like it together, Susan. I'm not there yet.
It's a 50-pound notebook.
I'll let you know. All right, friends, here's your reading for this afternoon. Trying to see if anybody else works at the Salvation Army here before I tell you all a secret. I brought my book that I thought I was printing a chart, and I printed the whole thing. 428 pages, front and back. It's color, so you can really see the detail. So if someone else wears my name tag in a year, it was my bad. It was all for the Greenville Development Code brief that they sent out. So if you don't know who I am, you're about to find out. My name is Lauren Stevens, and I am the proud director of social services at the Salvation Army here in Greenville County. I also serve as the chair of the Greenville Homeless Alliance's steering committee. I've been involved with all of these things since before the tent city crisis happened in 2014 and 2015. I've been in my current position about 15 minutes when Tent City was shut down, and I kept being asked, what are we gonna do? And I kept answering, I absolutely have no idea what you're talking about. But since then, I've grown and learned and tried and failed and got up and did it again. And I think that that is the narrative to this work, is the willingness to fail and try again for people who are trying again. And so I think that it's worthy and it's noble, and I think we have some great opportunities embedded in this very expensive notebook I have right here. So we have, as GHA and as well as everyone in this room, we've devoted countless hours of attending public meetings, providing public comments, and helping our city create a comprehensive plan that identified affordable housing as one of the 3 most important goals over 20 years, along with mobility options, which I'm sure all of you guys had the wonderful experience of parking here at the CoC Center. There's not a lot of parking spaces, so support public transit. I mean, this is the greatest place to learn that, right? We're gonna use the next 10 minutes, I've probably stolen 4, so you're welcome. We're gonna use the next 10 minutes to walk through a time of discussion at your table and time to submit your comments on the city's new development code. I happen to bring my 428-page document with me today. So if you need a reference point, come on up here to the front. We don't bite hard. You can come up here and flip through it. Don't dog-ear the pages. I'm going to sell this later in a raffle. And as you'll see on the table, see what GHA supports and what areas of concern that we have identified through the new development code. We want you to know that the 3 big things of support will help us realize that GHA's mission or vision to create a community where everyone has access to a safe and affordable home. However, zoning alone is not going to be enough. Turns page. Essential as a first step, it definitely is, and can incentivize the private market. Public funds alone cannot solve the challenges that everyone in this room faces and all of the faces that everyone in this room represents. On your table, you'll see instructions. You need to go ahead and elect a scribe and a spokesperson. We're about to see everybody's Enneagram come right on out into the room, okay? And we'll call time with 3 minutes to go, and we'll ask you to shift into writing an email to share your feedback on what you support in the code and what concerns you may have. We hope that you'll submit your feedback today and by Friday at the absolute latest, as that is the last day for the code input for the current draft. All right, does anybody not see their directions for this little activity?
It's on the back of your agenda.
It's on the back of your agenda. So number 1, 30 seconds or less. Introduce yourself to your table mates and how long you've been involved in the work of services to be provided to the homeless. Number 2, you need to elect a spokesperson and a scribe. If you have a small table, you might have a dual office role. Number 3, the spokesperson will ask the questions, so we have one voice, and make sure that everyone has an opportunity to talk. So everyone that has a Lauren at the table, make sure you give her a nice elbow, okay? Number 4, the scribe will take notes and share those with GHA staff at the end of the meeting. So if it's chicken scratch, that's your preference, then you can tighten that up like I tell my 9-year-old. Number 5, the goal is for your table to cover all 3 questions. Good luck. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to point and shoot. So I'm going to point to whoever's handwriting this is on the regular notebook paper. You have a font for handwriting, and I'm grateful for you today. That's beautiful. And so we will go through these little by little. Sorry, I have to read this. And we can start to see kind of the flow of thought and how the conversation was had at the table and how one question quite literally leads to another, which is really evidence of the whole issue of generational poverty, homelessness, and just generalized economic suffering that does take place here in Greenville. I've lived here my whole life. It's never looked like this before. And I work every day to hope that it doesn't look like this forever. And so we're just all trying to collectively do that. And that is very much represented on this needing to be bigger post-it note behind me. So I'm loud also, that's good. Who are these friends where you have these, what table is that? All right, give us a 30 seconds about what y'all talked about. Give us 30 seconds.
We talked about people not affordable housing, but housing that people can afford.
Okay, it's a good
What you
distinction.
can afford, I might not be able to afford. And I don't even use that term anymore. We need housing people can afford. We need to stop the gentrification of our neighborhoods. I moved in Sterling 10 years ago when Charlie built me a house and I worked out in Temple. When I moved in there, the police wouldn't come in that neighborhood. Now we got $400,000 homes across the street from me. We gotta stop it. The city, somebody needs to stop these developers from coming in and developing all these high-end properties. I used to work at the YW.
Don't look like that anymore.
Homes are now $1 million. And we need 24-hour transit and childcare. I'm sick of people saying people don't want to work. They do want to work, but they got no damn way to get there.
All right now, Sandoval. Don't preach to them. There you go. All right, who is the beautiful handwriting on the notebook paper? Go ahead, call yourself out, that's you. Love that for us. It's so nice. No, it really is. So what did you guys get to chatting about?
Take on question number one, give that, so that was, ADUs, and so I'm an architect, I can't help with good handwriting. I think our biggest concern is how do you maintain affordable housing with accessory dwelling units, and that's, so one component of it. Another component with, obviously, we definitely must have, housing generated near transit and jobs. That's a no-brainer. And then on question number 3, we discussed it very briefly. And obviously recognize that there is definitively a need for the state to rethink inclusionary zoning practices in a way that would both be financially beneficial and affordable for those. Truly affordable.
Those are some, I mean, that's, yeah, both. I mean, I think both, yes and kind of situations. All right, we're gonna do one last one, and then I'm gonna give Bruce Forbes a couple moments of his time. Does anybody, because it's all kind of a rainbow up here now, is there anybody that had a really specific piece of conversation at your table that you would like to share that has not already shared? Whoever wants to go, just start.
Okay, my name is Angela.
Oh, wait, we already heard from your table. Y'all cut off, hang on. We'll come back if we have time. Hang on, we already heard from y'all's table. All right, somebody in the back. Yes, ma'am.
All right, so our question number 3 was, and this has been brought to me, if the housing department is sold, and a new owner comes in and requires to provide the same affordable housing. So if they say there's 4 or 5 units, that developer does that, he sells it in 2 years. Is that going to be honored? Is that part of the negotiation? I think there's a loophole after 2 to 5 years. Please pay attention to that. Like the original developer did that. I think it's in the code. If another developer comes in, is that going to be honored? Grandfathered in.
So we think that question or that position is in the code, and I'm not gonna look for it in a notebook, but I do think that that's a good thing to go back and bookmark in our heads to make sure it is, and if it isn't, we have until Friday to submit that kind of feedback.
Just answering generally, right, over situations, specifically in affordable housing development, the funders of that development are going to have an affordability restriction that goes with the land, that even if it changes hands, the affordability needs to remain in place for a certain period of time. So even if it's in the county code, it's also covered by whoever's funding that development. If there's a tax credit development, then there's an affordability restriction. If it's funded by a local organization, they're going to have one, and then if it's funded by the state with federal funding, that's going to have one also. So it's not to say that it isn't necessary in the code, but it is also covered by other.
Bruce, let's don't kid ourselves. What's being talked about as affordable housing is 60% of AMI and sometimes up to 80.
Right.
We're really not dealing with the 30% and under, which is what we're here for today.
Right.
So,
Thank you, Matt, for sharing that. Hey, everybody, my name is Bruce Forbes, and see all the things I'm associated with. My biggest takeaway regarding the questions here, and I'm glad that GHA asked these 3 questions. I'm sure there's 10 million more, but about the ADUs as the primary affordable housing idea, is that correct? I mean, is that really what they really think? ADUs are going to be the primary, so we're not going to build large developments or things like that? Makes no sense whatsoever. Yeah, so anyways, so I'm here to tell you a little bit about the continuum of care, and the continuum of care are basically homeless service providers and others that are involved with helping folks who are homeless in 13 counties in the upstate. And want to share with you some of the strategic priorities and plans that we have. A lot of it we have taken from the United States Interagency Council on Homelessness. And so just wanted to let you know a little bit about here's what we hope to be able to accomplish in the near future. One of the nice things is that there are 19 United States government agencies that are going to participate in the funding. So it's not all just be HUD dollars, for example. So all of us out here wanting to provide resources and services for folks who are homeless and wanting to exit homeless, we want to make sure that we're looking at a variety of different resources that are out there, at least government types of resources, and also not forgetting about other types of non-government resources too. So some of the things that we want to focus on are increasing low barrier shelter or housing options. So what does that mean? That means to make it a little bit easier for people to get off the streets. I've been serving folks who are homeless for over 25 years, and nobody gets better on the streets. It just doesn't happen. But once they get into a place and they form a relationship and they're attached to services, then the healing begins, and I've seen the transformation take place. So creating some low barrier places for people to, warts and all, they're able to come in off the streets and have a place to begin the process of forming a relationship and moving forward. That's what we're talking about there. Strengthening the coordinated entry system. So HUD has mandated that all continuums of care basically look to help those who are most vulnerable in the entire CoC, not just the waiting list that you might have with your particular agency or service. And so we're continuing to work to have those lists. From a continuum of care standpoint, we've gotten smart and we said, hey, let's separate veterans who are homeless and let's make sure they get connected to those veteran services. And that has worked really, really well. Hey, those folks that are suffering from domestic violence, let's get those folks off the big list and move them to the DV shelters and services that are there. And we've had a lot of success in helping people get off of homelessness and into a home. Supporting efforts to decriminalize homelessness. You all know that when you're on the streets and in and out of the shelters, prone to do some stupid things, getting arrested for things, but we shouldn't allow that entire, those incidents to hold you down. So there are efforts being made today where hopefully we'll have, a homeless court and other things like that, so that the person's sentence is make sure you stay connected to this service or that service. If you do those things and the service tells us that you're doing those things, we will wipe the slate clean and now you can move forward with your life.
Okay, Bruce, can I ask you a question right quick?
Yeah, real quick.
Decriminalize the homelessness.
Yeah.
Let's decriminalize access to housing opportunities for veterans.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
What about the criminal background check?
Yeah, absolutely. So that I'm going to get to that in a second. So hold on that. So that's a good point. And obviously we want to use our programs where we're using an equitable lens. There's no one size fits all. There are many different subpopulations of folks who are homeless, and we want to make sure that we've got services that address all of that. Okay. So some of the places where absolutely the continuum of care and GHA align. Again, we're grateful for the Innovate group working on landlord engagement. We want to work with them, absolutely. We feel that that's a really important area to really see what we can do. As you all know, rents have gone way up. Rents are now, so a person just doesn't pay the rent anymore in Duke and Water. Now they pay all these interesting fees. And I mean, they're just coming up with all kinds of stuff now. So if your rent is $800, then guess what? You're paying $1,200 just to be able to stay there, plus Duke and other things. So we want to really work together as a group, as a community around landlord engagement. We're not making the landlords wrong. They still need to make a living and all that good stuff. But we want to make sure that where can we make things happen? You know, if you designate 10% of your units to folks that we're working with, you know, because it costs less for a community to have people off the streets than on the streets. So we want you to do your part, and we'll figure out ways to help make that deal more amenable, like landlord insurance of some sort, if someone decides to trash your unit, those kinds of things. And other communities have done it, and they've rarely had to go into that landlord insurance just because, well, they've been trashing the units, but it's nice to have that as a safety net. And then obviously addressing barriers in the system. We want to make sure that what's preventing people from being able to move forward. And you can see the continuum here, you know, where people are unsheltered, then getting into a shelter, and then eventually getting into affordable housing. And again, some families just had a bad time and they need that new place to live, great. But there are others with mental illness issues, addiction issues, where they're gonna need that supportive services, those wraparound services to support them. So we wanna make sure we have all those available. Sandra.
One of the issues we're running into is evictions.
Yes.
They take your $60 at the apartment complex, knowing already they're not gonna rent to you.
Yeah.
Don't give it back to you.
Right.
And people who have been evicted are having a terrible time
Yes.
finding out, and that's a real big issue.
So landlord engagement, we'll talk about that.
Close to conservation.
Yeah, folks with criminal backgrounds, these are the things we want to talk about. I mean, bottom line is, who are you going to do business with? Someone that you have never met before, or someone that you've had have a relationship with, right? And so these landlord engagements will offer that opportunity. All right. So next meetings, I don't remember, got anything? Next meetings are
April 26th.
drum roll, please. July.
April.
26th, July 26th, and another date.
October 25th.
And October
25th.
25th, and there will be a quiz on those dates. So, you guys want to say anything to wrap it up today?
Just remind them to sign up.
Yeah, so, continue to talk to your neighbor and all that. We super appreciate that you're here today on this joint meeting with the GHA and Continuum of Care. Go ahead and be a part of the working group. We love your input and your energy, and have a great rest of the week. We appreciate your support immensely.
Thank you.